Chapter 3: The Tangled Web of Obsession. The morning after the meeting with Seraphina Thorne, I woke up in a haze. Sunlight, defiant and bright, sliced through the gaps in my curtains, but my mind remained clouded, thick with the intoxicating fog of silver eyes and moonlight hair. I'd barely slept, tossing and turning through the night, each restless shift a futile attempt to dislodge her image from my mind. It was a face carved from myth, a voice that resonated with ancient currents, and a presence that had effortlessly eclipsed the burning rage that had consumed me just days prior. I tried to rationalize it. I dismissed it. I told myself it was merely an extreme reaction to beauty, a fleeting infatuation, nothing more. But the visceral, immediate pull I'd felt was unlike anything I'd experienced. It was as if a dormant part of me, a part one hadn't known existed, had been jolted awake, recognizing something profound and undeniable. I barely remembered the intricacies of the business deal, the market projections, or Uncle Arthur's proud pronouncements. All that registered was Seraphina Thorne. Downstairs, the aroma of Aunt Clara's perpetually brewing jasmine tea and fresh toast usually brought a sense of grounding, a familiar comfort. Today it felt distant, almost irrelevant. "Finian, you were very quiet during the meeting yesterday," and Clara observed, her brow furrowed with a familiar, gentle concern as she poured my tea. "Are you feeling all right?" I managed a weak smile, avoiding her searching gaze. "Fine, Aunt Clara. Just a lot to take in." Uncle Arthur, already engrossed in the business section of the morning paper, chuckled, folding the newsprint with a decisive snap. "Nonsense, Clara, he was simply taking it all in. A very successful meeting, Finian, very successful. Seraphina Thorne is a shrewd businesswoman, remarkably astute for someone so young. Her company, Ethelgard Acquisitions, deals in some fascinating high-value, rare items. We'll be working closely on the procurement side for a few weeks, which means you'll be immersed right away." My heart gave an uncomfortable lurch at the mention of her name. I mumbled agreement, my mind already drifting. I felt a sharp pang of guilt. My parents, the creature, revenge. It all felt so distant. A cold, shadowed path that was suddenly obscured by a dazzling, impossible light. I should be consumed by the hunt, by the injustice. Instead, I was consumed by her. Uncle Arthur, oblivious to the true nature of my distraction, soon herded me into the bustling heart of Blackwood Industries. The office was a hive of activity, phones ringing, keyboards clacking, the scent of strong coffee and printer ink thick in the air. This was the future Uncle Arthur envisioned for me, a world of ledgers and deals, far removed from mythical beasts and blood vendettas. "Anya, this is Finian," Uncle Arthur announced, gesturing towards a young woman seated at a neatly organized desk. She looked up, her dark, intelligent eyes meeting mine with a polite, professional smile. "He'll be learning the ropes, and you'll be his primary guide, especially concerning our new partnership with Ethelgard. Make sure he understands the intricacies of the Thorne deal." Anya Sharma was sharp, efficient, and seemed to possess an almost preternatural ability to organize chaos. "Of course, Mr. Blackwood. Welcome, Finian. Anything you need, just ask." I settled into the desk opposite hers, a stack of files awaiting me. I tried to focus. I truly did. I scanned reports, nodded at Anya's clear explanations of logistical processes, but my gaze kept drifting. I found myself idly sketching Seraphina's profile on a notepad, the elegant curve of her neck, the impossible silver of her eyes. Anya, I realized, was far more perceptive than Uncle Arthur. "Is everything all right, Finian?" she asked, her voice quiet but direct, catching me in the act of adding a shimmering quality to Seraphina's imagined hair. "You seem a bit elsewhere today." I flustered, quickly covering the drawing. "Oh no, just a lot to take in. This Ethelgard Acquisitions, it's quite a formidable company. Do you know much about Serafina Thorne herself? Just, due diligence. I tried to sound casual, professional, but my voice probably cracked slightly. Anya gave me a knowing look, a faint smile playing on her lips. She's quite the legend, actually. Built Ethelgard from almost nothing in just a few years. Very private, very elusive. Deals with the most unique items. Ancient artifacts. Rare manuscripts. Things that often disappear from history, books only to resurface in her vault. She paused, then added, almost as an afterthought, "Some say she never ages, but that's just office gossip, of course." The last comment sent a prickle down my spine, a faint echo of the impossible creature my parents had described. But I quickly dismissed it, burying it under a fresh wave of Serafina's image. Later that afternoon, feeling restless and utterly useless at the office, I retreated to the solemn quiet of my parents' study at Blackwood Manor. The scent of old books and faded leather filled the air, a familiar comfort that today felt tinged with accusation. I picked up the silver fox charm from my desk, its cool metal a familiar weight in my palm. As my thoughts, inevitably, drifted back to Serafina, a strange sensation bloomed within the charm. It grew noticeably warmer, almost vibrating faintly, a low hum that seemed to resonate with the chaotic thrum of my own heartbeat. I frowned, examining it, but dismissed it as my imagination, a byproduct of my frayed nerves. I ran a hand along the spines of my parents' vast collection. I was looking for answers, for anything that might shed light on the nine-tailed fox that had shattered my world. My search was clumsy, driven by a raw, unrefined rage and a vague, desperate need for information. I pulled out a large, illustrated volume on mythological creatures of the world, then a slimmer one on Japanese folklore. I flipped through pages filled with dragons, griffins, and countless other fantastical beings. There were brief mentions of kitsune, the fox spirits of Japan, sometimes benevolent, sometimes mischievous. But nothing specific, nothing that felt like the monstrous killer. This is useless, I thought, slamming a book shut with a frustrated sigh. I was looking for a killer, a specific, malevolent entity, not academic classifications. The charm in my hand still held a faint warmth, a persistent ghost of the sensation. I stuffed it back into my pocket. I realized how little I actually knew about the nine-tailed fox, beyond the terrifying accounts of my parents' death. I needed more specific information, something beyond vague folklore. And then, the obsession twisted my logic into a new, convenient path. If Serafina deals with rare artifacts, ancient documents, maybe she knows about things like the creature that killed my parents? It was a flimsy excuse, a rationalization for my overwhelming desire to be near her, to learn more about her. But it provided a veneer of purpose to my distracted mind. The next day, Uncle Arthur, perhaps noticing my scattered focus despite the successful business deal, pulled me aside. "Finian, you've been asking Anya about unique historical items. I know a scholar, an old contact, Elias Vance, who specializes in ancient texts and obscure folklore. He's brilliant if a bit eccentric. Might be able to shed some light on your specific interests. He consults for high-end collectors and museums. Very discreet." Uncle Arthur gave me a knowing look as if understanding my vague interest in historical research, subtly nudging me towards a more academic path. I found myself in a university library, not the grand, modern kind, but one steeped in age, with rows of towering shelves crammed with dusty tomes. Elias Vance's office was less an office and more a chaotic nest of books, ancient maps unrolled across the floor, and half-eaten sandwiches forgotten amidst stacks of brittle parchment. Elias himself was a man of perpetual motion, spectacles perched on his nose, his fingers stained with ink. He was unassuming in appearance, but his eyes, when he focused them, gleamed with an almost manic intellectual energy. "Ah, Finian Blackwood, Uncle Arthur's nephew. Arthur mentioned you had some esoteric queries." Elias gestured vaguely towards a worn armchair. "Do sit." Feeling a prickle of unease at Elias's intensity, I chose my words carefully. "Yes, Mr. Vance. I'm researching. Specifically, mythological creatures. Shapeshifters. Ancient legends of powerful foxes in folklore." I tried to keep my voice level, professional. Elias's eyes lit up. He launched into a rapid-fire dissertation, pulling books from teetering piles with practiced ease. "Ah, Kitsune. Fascinating. Across cultures, fox spirits embody duality, cunning, wisdom, sometimes malevolence, sometimes benevolence. In Japan, the more tails a kitsune possesses, the older and more powerful it is, often gaining the ability to take on flawless human form. Some legends speak of their spiritual jewels, their fox fire, their ability to manipulate illusions. There are even obscure accounts of kitsune who desire to become fully human, sacrificing their power for mortal connection. A very rare, almost unheard of transformation requiring immense focus and a deeply rooted, pure desire. It's all in these texts. He patted a formidable stack of leather-bound volumes. I was overwhelmed. I wanted to scream, "Which one killed my parents?" but held my tongue. The mention of human form and powerful entities stuck with me. I thought of Seraphina, her ethereal beauty, her powerful presence. The silver charm in my pocket seemed to grow heavy, but I was too distracted by the flow of information to notice the connection. Elias was a fount of knowledge, but it was also academic, so detached. I was looking for a killer, not a lecture on comparative mythology. The opportunity to see Seraphina again came sooner than I expected. Uncle Arthur had me accompany him to a high-profile art auction, a major event on the city's social calendar, where Ethelgard Acquisitions was expected to be a prominent bidder. The ballroom glittered with chandeliers, reflecting off polished marble floors and the designer gowns of the city's elite. I felt awkward in my borrowed suit as I scanned the crowd, my heart thrumming. And then I saw her. Seraphina Thorne, luminous and composed, stood near a display of ancient sculptures, her silver eyes scanning the room with an almost regal detachment. She moved with a fluid grace, a silent whisper amidst the polite hum of conversation. When she smiled, it was subtle, enigmatic, yet it seemed to captivate everyone in her orbit. I felt my breath catch in my throat, my earlier frustration melting away into pure, mesmerized awe. I also noticed him then, Mr. Harrison. A towering, formidable man, Harrison was Seraphina's shadow. He stood a few paces behind her, his gaze sweeping the room with an almost predatory watchfulness. He didn't speak, rarely moved, but his presence was a constant, subtle assurance of Seraphina's protection. I watched as Harrison's eyes settled on me for a brief, unsettling moment before moving on. I dismissed it as typical security detail, but a faint shiver traced my spine. Seraphina herself offered me a brief, almost imperceptible nod as our eyes met across the room, a flicker of recognition that sent a jolt through me. She then turned, dismissing a too eager suitor with a polite, almost imperceptible shake of her head, her composure absolute. I noticed her fingers lightly touching a simple silver ring on her right hand, an unconscious gesture, as if sensing something unseen. How could something so beautiful be connected to such violence? The thought ricocheted in my mind, sharp and conflicting. Seraphina was everything the legends weren't, graceful, serene, an embodiment of pure, refined beauty. The creature I hunted was a monster, a murderer. The disconnect was jarring, an internal battle waged between my vengeful instincts and the overwhelming tide of my attraction. I felt more lost in my feelings for Serafina than ever before, the quest for revenge a distant, fading echo. That evening, back at Blackwood Manor, Aunt Clara found me staring out the window, the city lights a distant blur. Her voice was gentle, filled with a familiar, maternal concern. "Finian, dear, you've been quite withdrawn since the meeting with Miss Thorne. And your focus on the business seems elsewhere. Is something troubling you beyond your parents' memory?" I avoided her gaze, mumbling no, and Clara just adjusting to everything. "It's a lot." She sighed, coming to sit beside me, her hand resting warmly on my arm. "I know it is. But remember, Finian, your parents, they guarded something incredibly important. A book? That's what the creature was after. Don't lose sight of what truly matters." Her voice was a quiet plea, a desperate anchor. Her words, usually so potent, barely registered, drowned out by the persistent current of Serafina in my thoughts. Yet, the mention of the book surfaced, a faint, almost imperceptible echo of my true quest amidst the overwhelming noise of my infatuation. A book dealing with rare artifacts. The thought was vague, disjointed, but it was there, a sliver of connection between my two warring desires. A self-serving rationale, perhaps, but a rationalization that would, in time, inadvertently lead me down a path far more dangerous than I could ever imagine. The tangled web of obsession had truly begun.